is that when you look at the conflicts that drive fiction, but they also drive life.
You're listening to Good Faith Weekly. I'm Mitch Randall.
And I'm Missy Randall.
We're here each week exploring the intersection of faith and culture
We find people who stand up, speak out, and step forward.
for inclusion, freedom, and justice for all.
It's time for Good Faith Weekly.
Brought to you by Good Faith Media. Welcome to Good Faith Weekly. On this episode, Missy and I are going to catch up, talk a little bit about the controversy surrounding the latest ad by American Eagle, and then later on in the pod, we sat down with one of our favorite human beings ever, Brian McLaren. Brian's got a brand new book out titled The Last Voyage. It's a great pod, so stay tuned. Hello there, Missy.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well, and you?
I don't feel so well.
Oh, no.
I know. I haven't told you that yet. So we talked about last.
Hang on, let me get this plexiglass built real quick.
No, not that kind of feeling. Though.
Oh, okay.
No. So we talked about last weekend. We went down to spend some time with friends and
We did.
colleagues. It super fun. And on our way home, you dropped me off in the Dallas area. I spent a few days
On purpose.
Yes. Luckily for you.
Yes.
So I spent a few days with my cousin and his family in the Dallas area, helping as his wife had surgery, and they have two little ones. And the summertime, kids have activities; they got to be everywhere. And so
Missy to the rescue.
Of course, I love to be the hero of my own stories, right?
Indeed, you are every day.
Of course. So anyway, so I got to spend a few days playing, working a little bit, and then also kind of playing mom again, which was fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, so two little girls, 6 and 9. So we spent a lot of time in the pool playing, which again, so fun for me.
So fun.
It's how I spent my childhood, just living in the water. So 9-year-old, we're out swimming, working on some strokes and things like that. And she wants to learn how to do flips underwater.
Oh, fun.
Which is great.
Oh, great
right?
fun. Yeah, absolutely.
I fancy myself a bit of an underwater acrobat.
Yeah, if doing flips
Right?
underwater were an Olympic sport, you
I
would
mean,
definitely
I have
be a
always
gold medal.
fancied myself this. I'm a little bit of a tumbler, was in the day.
Yeah, back in the day. Yeah.
Right. Fun fact. A 50-year-old body is not made to do the same things that maybe a 15-year-old body was.
Oh, I'm so disappointed I wasn't there to see this.
So I was trying to help her figure out how to propel your body, how to contort your body, how to get those muscle movements right to do these underwater flips, in particular a backflip, which is not difficult to do. And so I was I was showing her how to do this, and I think I got so much water in my ears. I guess either it's like swimmer's ear, or maybe I have an infection, or maybe it's just that I'm not meant to spin that many times under the water, but my head is just still the pressure. I don't know if I'm going to have to go to the doctor or what. So yeah, I don't feel so great. But it was 100% worth it. It was so much fun.
Oh my gosh.
And like you said, I always appreciate being the hero of my own story.
Absolutely.
So.
I'm sure they rose up and called your name blessed.
Yeah, I highly doubt that. They're probably like, all right, you've been here 2 days ago. But anyways, so that's how I'm
I'm
feeling.
sorry you're not feeling well. So
Yeah,
if you
so
need me to bang the side of your head to get the water out, just
You'll
let me
help?
know. Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, so this week we received a text from our niece who's in
Yes.
college and saying, "Are y'all gonna talk about this Sydney Sweeney ad?" And we were like, "What are you talking about?" And so, dear listener, if you are not privy to what's going on with
If
American,
you've been living under a rock, then
well, I guess here we're gonna fill you in
Yeah.
on this because we have been requested to discuss it.
yes.
So apparently American Eagle released the series of ads with Sydney Sweeney, who we had to look up. Apparently she's an actress in many shows.
Yes, actress in Euphoria, She's also been in The Handmaid's Tale. So.
I mean, I recognized her, but couldn't have told you. Anyways, so the premise is that she's wearing jeans, and she does this play on words about she has good genes, Genes, but of course, crossed out to Jeans.
Right.
So of course, people are all aflutter talking about this and fussing about this, and being offended, and I just have a couple of notes first before we get into the deeper subject. Okay. But my first thought to this, with all of the backlash and all the people commenting, is, who watches commercials?
Yeah, I never even thought about that.
That was my first
where
thought
have you seen these commercials?
when she says, "Have you seen this commercial?" I was like, "No."
Commercial? What are you talking about?
Who watches those? So that was my first thought, and then my second thought was, well, crap. If we have to boycott American Eagle, what are you going to do?
I know. I was going to say, full disclosure, that is my jeans collection.
I know. So you're going to be pantsless.
Yeah, that or going to have to switch to Wrangler or
and that's not
Levi
happening.
Strauss. Maybe Lee jeans. Oh, I could go back to my younger days.
Toughskins?
Yes.
So
oh my gosh, that's bringing back so many memories, because I can remember I would have patches on my knees, and my mom would patch them with another patch.
Didn't you complain the jeans in the knee were so stiff because they double reinforced them or something?
Yeah, I look like the Tin Man walking around elementary school.
That's funny. I didn't have any of those.
Yeah.
Okay, and the third thing I want to say is, once we were alerted to this controversy out there, of course we had to do research. Yep. So last night we sat and watched several commentaries about this ad, and I have to say, this. Every week I come into recording this podcast with so much anxiety because it is not scripted, and I have a tendency to say things that I shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I'm always worried and afraid of what I might say and how that might be interpreted. But I will tell you, after watching Fox News commentary on this ad, I will never again feel worried or inadequate about my ability to
exactly.
Go
so what
on
I'm hearing
record.
is you could be a star on Fox News, is what I'm hearing you say.
Look at me. Do I look anything like what those women look like sitting on the couch? I think my legs are about 6 inches too short, but I appreciate you saying that. So yeah, those were kind of my thoughts about it. But as far as the content of the ad, I have a couple of thoughts, but I'll let you share yours first.
Yeah. When we got word of that, obviously, from your niece, we began to watch the ad, and then I began to do some reading and research about the ad itself. And it was interesting to see the responses, both the critiques and then also the critiques of the critiques, because it's hard to kind of support an ad like this. It's just everybody's critiquing everybody else about this. And so it was interesting. It's weird, to be quite honest with you. It just seems kind of weird. I don't know why they chose this particular language or this particular idea. It certainly, has roots in, genes, and eugenics, as some people have pointed out, that these genes, are somehow superior to other genes. And I understand the double entendre and, kind of what they're trying to do with the ad itself, but it's just like, that's where you want to go. And even if it's a campaign and then they have, a diverse group of actresses or entertainers, it's just weird. It was just strange to me.
So I have my notes as I was watching this. I said it is tone deaf at best and calculated at worst. And so that's kind of how I feel about it. And my one question to this, again, when I picture a room like of a ad, team trying to come up and somebody thought, oh, that's really cool, that play on words. Like you said, oh, it's a play on words. But also just think about it for a minute and go down the hall, get your interns, bring them in the room and be like, hey, interns, what do you think of this? Because I guarantee you, if you'd brought our young 20-somethings or my niece into the room, they would have been like, yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, right.
That's tone deaf. There's just an element of no. on there because it's just so problematic. Just the fun play on words is not where you need to, because that's not what it means, and this is not a good idea. So that's kind of where I'm landing on it. And I do understand that, in advertising, it's the idea is to shock you or to make you think or to catch your attention. And obviously, by those terms, they've done
it. Yeah.
They've done all those things. I sent, my niece a message. I'm like, okay, I want to hear your thoughts, because again, I contend that if you had, I don't know, maybe I just hang out with woke young people, which I'm proud to say, but if you had some perspectives in the room, that maybe weren't.
Well, and one commentator even suggested that this would be an example of the importance of having somebody, a DEI officer or employee in the room, just to remind them, okay, saying you shouldn't run this ad, but just know this is some of the backlash you're going to get from it because of what this.
The DEI person should have said, no, this is not good.
Yeah. And so, and I get really frustrated about the overarching criticism of DEI and, that we're too sensitive in this day and age, because, if I can be sensitive and say something differently or not say something that's going to offend somebody or call somebody by their preferred pronouns or whatever, why wouldn't I do that?
Right. It costs you nothing. It costs you nothing to be kind and to be considerate.
Exactly. I just don't get that.
So, I think that's absolutely right. And so my niece says, she says, I think it was a campaign done purposely in poor taste in order to use the controversy to get people talking about their brand while simultaneously getting the sales from people whose values do align with the message they were alluding to, which I thought was a really interesting take.
Yeah.
And I don't know that.
You got a smart niece.
I know. I mean, hey.
She's been hanging out with her uncle a lot.
I was gonna say good genes, but that's probably tone deaf at this point. See,
where's the DEI officer?
See, also my comment 5 minutes ago about play on words. But
moving on.
But I could say that a strong intellect runs in my family.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry, you guys. I clearly maybe need to go to Fox News. But I think that was
right.
And I think for a 20-year-old to come back and say this, and I'm like, why weren't they talking to the other younger, or I don't know, just a more like you said, a more diverse group of voices, to say if it was calculated, then it's really disheartening. If it's tone deaf, I think there's room to grow and learn from that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it reminds me, there's a lot to this ad, and, some people are comparing it to the old Brooke Shields ad as well. And in fact, your niece even brought that up, and we talked a little bit about that with her. But it's just amazing to me how, where we've come in advertising, even within the last 20 years, and what people are testing out, what companies are testing out today with the backlash against DEI. Because I still think one of the most profound ads that was ever created was by the company Dove. And when they sent that little girl through Manhattan, walking the streets and everything she saw and what she was taking in as far as unhealthy body imaging was concerned. I mean, that was mind-blowing. And so they started this whole campaign of body diversity and positive body imaging and things like that. And it was really an incredible ad. And it was an attempt to, obviously sell their product, but also to demonstrate, their product is for everybody and for all people. And that's what is kind of alarming about this particular ad, is that it seems to be pointing to one particular person.
Well, in one particular way to be, right. And I mean, right in terms of the way you look or present yourself or your genetics or whatever. Sure. And it's just, so it's usually problematic, obviously. But so it was an interesting little rabbit hole we had to go through and research.
Yeah, it was.
Because again, I contend my first point, who watches commercials?
Who watches commercials? Yeah, that is a good point.
But anyways, here we are.
Let's shift gears, Missy. And let's shift gears all the way to Mars.
Okay.
See what I did there?
Okay. Wow. Had to reach way back for that transition.
I did. No, we sat down with one of our favorite authors, thinkers, theologians, pastoral figures this week, and we got to talk with Brian McLaren.
So I will say, I am a
Huge fan
of Brian McLaren, and I contend that he is probably the closest thing to Mr. Rogers I will ever know personally.
Maybe we should send him a sweater. That'd be kind of creepy.
Send him a sweater. That might be kind of creepy. Or some jeans. Anyways, no, but I kind of teased him in the beginning because this latest book is technically a sci-fi.
Not one of your favorite genres.
That is not my genre of choice, I shall say.
Okay, so before we talk about the book, why? What is your aversion to sci-fi?
I don't know. It's just like, come on, obviously that's not going to happen. And I understand it's imaginative, but I just think there's so much crazy stuff that happens that actually could happen or happens. I don't really know. I just have never...
Okay, but you've got to tell the audience this one little factoid about yourself.
Oh, goodness.
What movie have you not seen?
Well, there are several.
But the big sci-fi movie.
Oh, the big sci-fi movie?
That you've never seen.
Well, again, there are several. But I would say the one that you give me the most hell about, and I'm probably going to get hate mail at this point.
Which you should.
I have never sat down and watched the Star Wars trilogy.
Oh, did you hear that?
Well, actually, the Star Wars, is it a trilogy or a sixology now? Because there's, what do you call it?
Sixology. Sixology.
What do you call it?
Yeah, so the original narrative, there were 6 episodes. Well, there were 3 episodes, and then there were 3 prequels.
See, I do know
and
this.
Now there are 3 posts.
Oh, there are more? So what is that, a nineology?
There's 9.
I don't know.
But then there's the TV. There's so much.
Oh my gosh.
It's the Star Wars.
And it keeps going on and on.
God, no.
I've also never seen The Godfather, so if you want to just all of you can faint now and then pick yourselves up off the floor. But yeah, so it's just, I don't know why, it's just never been a genre that has super appealed to me. But anyways, Brian, God love him, he's gonna make me a sci-fi fan. Yeah. No. If there's anybody in the world who can encourage me and get me to want to read, that would be Brian McLaren. And he did. He's written a fabulous book that we have enjoyed immensely, and we're excited to talk to him today about it.
What's really interesting, and we kind of walk through this in our conversation with him, is that it's a return to fiction for him.
Right.
Now, this is the first sci-fi book that he's ever written, but that's how I was introduced. That's how I was introduced to Brian McLaren, was through his original novel that was A New Kind of Christianity. And it just blew my mind away because the main character in that story was kind of going through the same questioning of belief and faith that I was going through at the time. And so he's a marvelous storyteller. But here we are, with this sci-fi book. And I mean, he pulls stuff right out of the headlines to create this futuristic narrative. And it's just really, really well done.
No, I agree. I really enjoyed the book. Like I said, if anybody can make a sci-fi fan out of me, it would be Brian McLaren.
Absolutely. So Missy and I will be right back with author, theologian, and just overall great guy, Brian McLaren, and his new book, The Last Voyage. We've got a lot going on at Good Faith Media in 2025. New logo, new website, new initiatives. And if you don't know, our new magazine. Good Faith Magazine includes Bible study and lessons. Our new lesson writers are Kathy and Nathan Maxwell, and they host a free, short, weekly podcast in support of their Bible study lessons. In the Good Faith Bible Study Podcast, and it's free. Learn more about the magazine, the lessons, the Maxwells, the podcast, and more at goodfaithmedia.org. Welcome back to Good Faith Weekly. On this episode, we've got a very special guest with us, Brian McLaren is an author, speaker, activist, and public theologian. A former college English teacher and pastor, he is a passionate advocate for a new kind of Christianity, just, generous, and working with people of all faiths for the common good. Brian is the author of numerous books, including Faith After Doubt, Do I Stay Christian, and Life After Doom, Wisdom and Courage for a World Falling Apart. His most recent book, The Last Voyage, was released in stores this week. Brian, welcome back to Good Faith Weekly.
Hey, it's so good to be back. I guess my third time with you all, so we're making this a habit.
Absolutely.
This is good.
Well, we maybe, Brian.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Uh-oh.
Because
Watch out.
I will say that after this is our third visit together, the first two, I believe I opened up fangirling, gushing because I loved the books. But now we have to have a discussion
Okay.
because you've gone and forced me to read science fiction.
Oh boy. And this is something you did not plan on doing, I can tell, Missy.
I just am somebody that fiction's kind of like down the list for me because I think truth is stranger than fiction most of the time. But then below that is usually science fiction. And so I have two issues with this, Brian. One, I've loved the books I've read of yours. I know Mitch found you years ago
Yes.
by a fiction book, A New Kind of Christian. Is the book he credits or some blame for setting him on a path to where he is today. So my first issue is the science fiction. My second one is there's going to be two more.
Yeah, Brian, there was nothing on the jacket when it came to us that said book one, but I get to the end and find out there's two more books coming, which is so exciting.
Oh, that's great.
Lucky for you, I am enough of a fan to take on this assignment and actually be pleasantly surprised and love the experience as well. So others who may be like me, who have come to know you through, books like Do I Stay Christian, Life After Doom, Faith After Doubt, tell us what prompted you to kind of go back into the fiction space.
So actually, Mitch called me a couple years ago and he said, "Look, I want you to write a book that will really get under Missy's skin."
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Throwing me under the bus.
He said,
You're the first one that took that bait, apparently, because I'm quite certain there's just an email list.
he said that you would like my work and he wanted to put an end to that. So
That's
I did my best. Yeah. So this is the truth. This will sound like fiction, but it's actually the truth. The day after the election in 2016, when I realized that we had elected a billionaire, someone whose main credential, along with being a TV star, was being a billionaire to be president, I thought this is going to change our history. And I thought if billionaires who already have way too much power also then get the power of the nuclear codes and everything else, right. Then the world's going to change. And I need some way to wrestle with what that might mean, the good and the bad of that. So, and my instinct was that I ought to grapple with some fiction. I'd had this idea for a science fiction book about Mars. And literally, this is the truth. The day after the election, I opened a file on my computer, The Last Voyage. And so I've been tinkering with this for 10 years. Yeah. Almost 10 years.
I will add, that is a very different response than I had the day after the 2016 election.
There was a lot of gnashing of teeth and a lot of cursing.
Well, I didn't say none of that happened. This is just one of the many things that happened.
Brian, let's set the stage for the book without giving too much away because, I mean, let's face it, we want people to buy the book and read it. It is absolutely stunning. It is a masterpiece. Well done, sir. The year in the setting for the book is the year 2056. The world has suffered a mega pandemic. The oligarchs reign supreme. In fact, you even allude to the descendants of Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. The results of climate change continue to wreak havoc, and the global economic structure is collapsing as we know it. Space exploration to Mars just might be the only opportunity to ensure the continuation of humanity. So, Brian, while this is undoubtedly a work of science fiction, come on, do you think this is a plausible future for us?
I sure hope not. I sure hope it'll be better than this. I sure hope not. People with a background reading the Bible know the book of Jonah, where Jonah makes a prediction. The whole purpose of the prediction is so that it won't happen. In other words, it's supposed to scare people so that they change their ways,
Hmm.
right? So I sure hope this won't happen. But look, when you put the oligarchs in charge, it leads to certain outcomes that are kind of predictable. And I have to say, in the 9 years since that first oligarch was elected, actually, probably many of our presidents
Sure.
have also been oligarchs. They also had other qualities, uh, but yeah, I don't know. But right now, it's looking like trouble is ahead of one sort or another. And yeah.
As I was reading the book and, you're setting the stage about the oligarchs controlling, the economic structure as well as kind of the cultural structure through certain dynamics. I kept going back to, and you mentioned a moment ago, the election of Donald Trump this last term. And we
Yeah.
go to that moment in the rotunda at the Capitol where he's being sworn in, and you have this, this span or this photo of all of these tech giants
Yeah.
and religious leaders behind him or beside him. They're celebrating or at least in attendance during his inauguration. And I just thought, as I was reading your book, I was like, this not only could happen, it seems to be happening before our eyes.
Well, the other thing that happened to me back in 2016 is I got interested. This sounds very morbid, but I actually did. I embarked on a study of authoritarianism.
Hmm.
I have a couple of friends who are psychologists and social psychologists, and I contacted them and I said, look, something feels like it's going on here. And if you could send me any peer reviewed literature that you think is historically accurate, scientifically accurate, that will help me understand the psychology of authoritarianism, the sociology of authoritarianism, send it my way. So they started bombarding me with articles, and I was able to read some of the main texts in this area. And what I mean, it's just sort of bizarre that I have a graduate degree. I'm a pretty well-read person, but I made it this far in life without ever learning that authoritarianism is a really, really big deal in human history that everybody ought to know about.
Right.
And one of the things that authoritarians always do is they always have rich people at their side. They always have religious people at their side. They need religious people to give them moral cover, moral
Mm.
camouflage. Um, and then they also always have, they usually have some criminals within reach because they need some things to be done off book. And my gosh, even what's going on in our headlines right now is reminding us of how many relationships with shady characters are out there. So, yeah, the what we're actually experiencing is a really boring replay of an old authoritarian not sitcom, but drama, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Melodrama,
Yeah,
maybe.
melodrama. Yeah.
So speaking of drama, let's talk about the two main characters, Colfax and his daughter Eve, and who are obviously at odds with each other. And as I mentioned, your past books that I've read have just spoken to me in such deep ways. From uh, Do I Stay Christian was, of course, the inner fundamentalist that I discovered. And then through the last book, Life After Doom, sorry, my mind's escaping me, but Life After Doom was the committee meetings in my mind that you also
Yeah.
introduced me to. I'm not saying that the tension in the father-daughter relationship is where I found it this time, but if I were saying that, maybe that's relatable.
Well,
You talk about the backstories, but the reason for the tension. But interestingly, you've got the father figure as the kind of skeptical antagonist, and Eve is the open-minded spiritualist, which is really an interesting dynamic. So, talk to us about why you kind of chose this type of relationship, the father-daughter dynamic, but also just the two different personalities to kind of be an overarching theme in the book.
well, thanks for focusing on that, Missy. Yeah, uh, I think one reason I wanted to explore that relationship in that configuration is that look at the conflicts that they drive fiction, but they also drive life. They're often conflicts between generations, an older generation, younger generation. There are often conflicts between men and women, and there are often conflicts between different religious ideologies. And so all three of those are at work in this father-daughter pair. And uh, Colfax really is a guy who represents the kind of old elites of our society, old white men with a lot of education, usually, and privilege and so on. And in Colfax's case, really for both Colfax and Eve, traditional religion is a thing of the past. They Neither of them see traditional religion as a live option. For Eve, there's got to be, she's sort of exploring what are new spirituality possibilities, and that's her whole life is really devoted to that. But in many ways, Colfax just wants to keep stamping out the old forms of religion that are so harmful. And I feel like that drama takes place inside of me right after I brush my teeth every morning. I've got my inner Colfax and my inner Eve working in me too. Yeah.
Yeah. That was always so interesting about the character development because Colfax, I mean, certainly the antagonist, and you're rooting for Eve because, I mean, she's intelligent. She's, really exploring her spirituality, challenging others to explore their spirituality and embracing ritualism on numerous occasions. But then you get Colfax, who basically says some things out loud that we're all kind of thinking the lines. So it was
Yeah,
good.
well, this interplay between curiosity and skepticism. I mean,
Yeah.
this is part of the drama of each of our lives: openness and a desire to not be fooled again. Right?
Mhm.
These are a part of us that wants to take risks, but a part of us that has already been hurt enough that we feel I don't need any risks in that area again. And so that drama, those dramas are at work in both characters. And in some ways, I hope you all felt this as you read it, that, you know, Colfax can really be annoying and pretentious, but Eve loves him.
I
He's her
know. Yeah.
dad.
Yeah.
She, yeah. And in the second novel, there will be a few interesting twists that come out of that
I
relationship.
can't wait.
Well, I love when you put them on one of the decks, away from everybody, and they just go at it. I mean, I mean, they're just screaming at one another, hurling insults. But there is this kind of, sweetness about it at the same time. It's a great moment in the book.
Oh, I appreciate that. The setting of being in a long metal tube hurtling through space. This is one of the things that in a lot of science fiction novels ends up being super interesting and super revelatory. We are stuck with each other. We can't get away from each other. And this is, I wish this weren't true, but it is true. We're all stuck with each other on this little planet hurtling through space.
Well, one of the things I really appreciated about the book, Brian, is obviously there are a lot of warnings in the book. Anybody who read Life After Doom could not help but see or read the warnings as the story begins, as the story unfolds throughout the entirety of the narrative. But here's what I really appreciated about the book, probably more than anything, that while there are warnings there and they are clear, this story seems to really be about what it means to be human.
Mm. Well, I'm glad you feel that way because in a certain sense, if the warnings are half as bad as a lot of us think they are, we've got to get back in touch with the best parts of our humanity
Right.
in the most direct ways that we can. So, and I hope it's one of the reasons why the character Gabriella became so important
Hmm.
to me in writing the book. She kind of gets the first word and the last word in this book because she is a person who just has this human joy of life, and I feel like that's something we need in every crew, something we need in every voyage.
Yeah. Because along the way, there's this constant tension between the rational mind and the emotional self or the
Yeah,
spiritual self. And it seems to be this constant struggle on this journey towards Mars between those two.
yeah,
And each character discovering for themselves what it means to be human in their context, but also what it means to be human alongside others who are quite different from them. And it's a
yeah.
beautiful, I think, testimony of the community that we live in, that is a community of humans.
Well, I'm glad you felt that way. One of because of the way the story unfolds, that the crew that's chosen for each voyage, and this I think is the 13th and final voyage of this
Hmm.
whole Mars project in the book. Each crew has a necessary requirement of diversity because they need a diverse gene pool for the community to be sustainable. And of course, we're living in a time where we have a government who explicitly doesn't want us to use words like diversity, equity, and inclusion. But here one of the things that's absolutely clear across cultures and history is that when you try to eradicate difference, you impoverish your chances of survival. You reduce your chances of well-being and survival. So this sense of the difference of even Colfax, they're such different people, but in a certain sense, they need each other and they learn from each other, I hope. Yeah, that's something I hope people. It's not really an idea that I hope people get from the book. It's something I hope people feel when they, in some ways, let the characters into their head.
The honesty around that, Brian, and the way you communicate that, we know what the uh, the folks in the ark are leaving. They're leaving Earth. They're leaving all the issues that we've talked about already. But
Yeah,
as they travel towards Mars, they also discover that there are problems there as well.
yeah,
And I thought that was a beautiful commentary on the honesty and genuineness of what it means to be human, because a lot of times we think that the future is filled with hope, and it is, and it's filled with possibilities, but it's also filled with reality. And you felt
yeah.
that tension along the journey, and that's what I really appreciated about it, that it is this
Well,
this
thank you.
journey of human existence, both the things that we leave and the things we're going towards.
So, Brian, my question in following up and listening to your commentary thus far would be, it is a obviously fiction science, but many, many truths. What are a couple of the key truths that you want people to walk away with when they read this book?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, Missy. I- My, my honest, my honest first response to that is, what I hope people walk away with is some feelings that, for example, that some of the people who annoy us the most, um, we actually need them, and they are a gift to us, and along with being an annoyance.
Hmm.
um, I hope people can feel that. I hope people have this feeling that our differences uh, that are part of the annoyance of others is are also this gift that, and we actually contribute our own uniqueness to this gift. And maybe here's a way to say it: this feeling that where we're going, none of us individually or no one little group of us has everything we need to get there and to survive there. Where we're going, meaning the future, whatever it is. And but that maybe if we were to dare to trust that there's knowledge that I don't have, that you have, knowledge you have, I don't have, but there's also knowledge none of us have. And until we're all in a sense in a state of openness toward things that are beyond what we already know, we won't be able to make it where we're going. And that feeling of there's more that I need that I don't know, I hope people will have that feeling when they get to cliffhanger ending of the first novel.
And it is a cliffhanger, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Well, Brian, I've got really a real personal question for you, and it's going to take me a little bit to get to the question. But you set me on a path years ago with a new kind of Christian, and I didn't know it at the time, and we weren't using this kind of language at the time, but it really helped me begin deconstructing what I grew up in, and that's fundamentalist Christianity. And
Yeah,
that was a long journey. It still is an ongoing process. And
yeah,
in Do I Stay Christian, you and I talked about, what that means today. And, I still have a problem with the term Christianity or being a Christian. I use the term more of being a follower of Jesus and try to
mhm,
define what that means. And then after life after doom, we talked about the significance for me in the part of discovering indigenous wisdom
mm,
as a Muskogee Creek person. That
mm,
really meant a lot to me, and
yeah,
that symbiotic existence as a human, and the relationship between the creator and created, and between created and created. Well, there's this moment in this book, and I apologize that I'm going to read your words back to you, but for quite some time, as this deconstruction has unfolded for me over the years, I have gotten to a point of trying to construct something, a new
mm,
path forward. You talked about a new way of being a Christian,
mm,
or what it means to be a Jesus follower for me, or
mm,
incorporating other ancient wisdoms into my faith. And there's this moment in the book, and it's a monologue by Eve that just sent chills down my spine and tears rolling down my cheeks. So I know you know these words, but the listeners don't. This is the words from the book. Eve said, every religion has its own unique treasures to offer, and perhaps it has corresponding shadows or weaknesses or even flaws. As a Christian, I want to understand my faith's deepest treasures so I can appreciate them myself and make them available to others. And I also want to own its flaws and shadows so I will always remain humble and avoid inflicting them on others. I want to always remain curious so I can receive the unique insights and strengths that people from other traditions offer me. And that way, my Christian identity is enhanced by insights and resources from others, just as I hope they're enriched by my insights and resources I bring. To me, this is an expression of being a good neighbor to one another. We don't suppress or deny our differences. We aren't divided by our differences, and we don't try to eliminate our differences by imposing one way of seeing on everyone. Instead, Eve says, we are mutually enriched by our differences. What we hold in common is our common desire, the common good. That was beautiful.
oh, thank you,
Is this
thank you.
something that we can embrace for the future? Because I really love that.
Well, first, thanks for reading that. Uh, and I don't know if we can embrace it for the future, but if we can't, we're in a lot of trouble. So I hope we can, and obviously, uh, it's the reason why I write. It's the reason probably why you do podcasts,
Hmm.
because we actually want to help people uh, open up to that possibility. As you were reading that, I was remembering, I wrote a book some years ago called "Why Did Jesus, Moses, the Buddha, and Muhammad Cross the Road?"
Yeah.
And one of the little ideas, kind of a big idea to me that I stumbled into in the writing of that book, was that it's not our religious differences that divide us; it's a religious similarity. And the similarity is all of our religions want to be first. All of our religions want to be the best.
Yeah.
And that thing that we hold in common is what creates this huge division among us, and so much rivalry and so on. So yeah, this shift in attitude, where we see this great value and treasure in our religious heritage. Every heritage has it, has something.
Hmm.
And in fact, I think there is a wing of every religious tradition where you find that treasure concentrated. Very often it's the not the loudest or most visible part, but it's some part of that tradition. Um, uh, that set of treasures, we would be we would be impoverished if we threw that out. But we also have so much garbage in each of our traditions, um, and we've got to face it. We're seeing it in the headlines every day that the worst parts of our religions, it seems, are the ones that people are holding on to most passionately.
Uh, well, I just love that. That just spoke volumes to me. So I really
Oh, I'm so
appreciated it.
glad. I'm so glad.
Yeah. And it seems to me, I mean, like there's so many problems that we're facing today. And, we see what's going on in Gaza and the West Bank. And a lot of times we have commentators here at Good Faith Media that write about the situation. And to be quite frank, Brian, it doesn't matter what we write or who writes
Yeah,
anything, there's going to be high levels of criticism. And
yeah,
so I've tried to answer those critics, no matter who they are, challenging them to, instead of seeing each other, appreciating the uniqueness of what it means to be
yeah,
Palestinian and what it means to be
yeah,
Jewish, but also to understand the common denominator within us all is our humanness,
yeah,
our personhood.
yeah,
And so why can't we start there? Why can't
yeah,
we start there at the core of who we are and then work out? It seems like we start elsewhere, whether that is
yeah.
ethnic identities, whether that's political divisions, religious divisions. We don't start at the core of who we are as
Mm.
human beings.
Mm. It's interesting as you say that. I think to myself, wouldn't it be nice if somebody started a religion that was really based on that core idea that we love our neighbor as ourself? I mean, wouldn't that be nice if somebody did that? Yeah, I mean, isn't it ironic,
Hmm.
right, that we find ourselves wishing for exactly what it seems like Jesus was actually about? And I think what the Buddha was actually about, and on his best days, I think what Muhammad was about. They were looking around their world and seeing the same problems that we're talking about, and they were looking for some sort of a solution. And they knew that we needed to stop telling the stories that cast our little group as the pure and everyone else as the impure, our little group as the good and all the other groups as evil, or our group is smart and all the other ones as stupid. Um, so they knew we needed some story that gave a place for all of us, right? And then they knew that we needed a certain kind of humility, and an ability to forgive and to not hold on to our old resentments and so on. And but yeah, we've got other dynamics going on that we seem to preoccupy
And what I
ourselves with.
and what I appreciated about your writing, in particular, the character of Eve in this story, is that to embrace that idea, to embrace that common denominator as human beings, and start at that point, does not mean it's an abandonment of our rituals or our traditions.
Yeah,
It's an enhancement of that,
yeah.
and that's what came across to me as I read the story, and particular the character of Eve.
Well, one of the things I was playing with and exploring in the writing of this book is that it seems to me the kind of spirituality that we need going forward is going to be deeply rooted in our traditions, but will have a complete embrace of science, including science's commitment to always improve its
Hmm.
facts,
Right.
to think critically about what it said in the past and keep improving. And it's very interesting in the world of brain science and social psychology. Like, we are learning how important things like liturgy are. We're learning that when you get human brains and you put them in a room together and you get them singing together or dancing together or lighting candles together, whatever it is, they're bound together in ways that other people aren't. And so now the question comes: how do we want to use those powerful tools to bring people together in a good way and in the biggest and most healing spirit that we can?
Absolutely.
So now that you've written this wonderful book and you've left us hanging now, can you give us an ETA on the next, at least the next one, if not the next two?
Sure. Yeah. So the first book is called The Last Voyage, and then the second is called The Great Rift. if you know anything about Mars, in Mars, there's this huge scar across the whole planet. It's this, like the Grand Canyon multiplied many hundreds of times. It's just this huge rift in the surface of the planet. So the Great Rift is actually where the colony is built, but it also, suggests this great rift in and among humans. So that's the second book. And then the third, and that should be out in a little over a year.
Okay.
And then the third book should be out about a year after that, and that's called Ethnogenesis. And ethnogenesis means the formation of a new people, and it takes place 30 years farther in the future, when the Mars colony reestablishes contact with some people on Earth. And in a sense, they now have a chance to compare notes of what's happened to them over the last 30 years. So that's the outline for the 3 books.
The squirrels inside your brain must be exhausted.
How did you know about those squirrels?
Because Mitch tells me he can hear mine just spinning, but that's nothing like a McLaren level at all.
Well, it's actually been a lot of fun, and it's felt like a constructive way to just try to work with the chaos that's around all of us.
Does it help you to process what's going on in the real world? It seems like it would have that kind of imagination and, like you said, curiosity about what could be.
It does. It's funny. I mean, there's some degree, you go to a movie, you read a book, even you go to a concert, you listen to an album of songs. In one way, it's an escape, but in another way, you're fortifying yourself and you're freeing some things up in yourself, that it's actually maybe a survival mechanism as well. So, I think the arts are kind of like that.
Yeah. Well, it is beautifully written. It is a great story. And yes, even though it is named The Last Voyage, it is not the last book. It is the first book in a trilogy. And it is on bookshelves this week. So make certain after you listen to this podcast to sign off and go pick a copy of it up. It is a great read. You will enjoy it, and you will be waiting for the second book to come out in the next year. Brian, it's always a pleasure. But before we let you go, we've got one last question. You know what's coming, and Missy gets to ask it.
Well, Brian, as you know, our tagline at Good Faith Media is "There's more to tell." So in light of our conversation today and your work, what is your more to tell?
Well, actually, my more to tell is now I'm really curious about what our next conversation will look like, because I look forward to doing this again. So, and let me just say, it's super encouraging talking to you. I'm super glad that you do this podcast and create this space. In the book, I literally create this little metal tube floating through space with 10 people stuck on it. But in a way, a podcast is kind of like sticking up some people in a little room and having them talk and letting people listen. And so, we're all on these voyages together. So thank you.
Thank you. I also can't wait. I will say I'm not supposed to do this because you're supposed to have the last word. But in preparing today, I went back and listened to our last conversation, and I'm so glad that I did. I just adore you, and I adore that last time you left us with, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know how I want to show up. And I thank you for the ways that you show up, the way that you show up in print, the way that you show up on our screen, and the way that you have shown up in our lives and don't even know it. So thank you for that. And I look forward to our next meeting.
Me too.
Well, Brian McLaren, thank you again. You're welcome back anytime. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Good Faith Weekly. And until next week, keep living good faith. You've been listening to Good Faith Weekly, hosted by Mitch and Missy Randall. This weekly podcast from Good Faith Media discusses matters of faith and culture.
Subscribe wherever you get your podcast and give us a like and a glowing review. We produce the podcast out of Norman, Oklahoma. Our music comes from Pond 5.
And we're supported by listeners like you. Learn more about us at goodfaithmedia.org.